One of the questions we get a lot is, will X camshaft work with Y cylinder head and Z piston? Well, best way to measure that is to put it together, try it, and clay it. Assuming your piston matches your combustion chamber shape, you'll notice this one's wider diameter compared to a stock XR100 piston. Next thing is going to be the camshaft valve lift as it relates to these pockets here in the piston. We've got the larger one here on the intake side, smaller one here on the exhaust side. So we're going to clay the piston and check our piston to valve clearance. We need to make sure there is a specific amount of clearance between the valve and the piston so they don't hit each other, because that's a recipe for disaster. Go to any local place that sells modeling clay and pick yourself up some. Picked up some modeling clay at the local Hobby Lobby, where the cashier asked me what I was going to be making, and I said horsepower, and she kind of laughed and said I like horses too. Yeah, it was a little weird. Being a guy in Hobby Lobby, it's got to feel like a girl going into the hardware store. Anyway, let's go ahead and crack open this box, and I'll show you the proper procedure on how to clay your piston. You're going to take your modeling clay, you're going to roll it into about a 5mm diameter little bowl, and we're going to stick it kind of toward the center, as close as we can get on the intake and the exhaust side where the valves are going to hit. Now, a little trick that I like to do is I'll take the cylinder head that's going to go on there, spray a little WD-40 on the faces of the valves so that clay will not stick to the valves. You want the valve to smash the clay on top of the piston, because we're going to measure that thickness next. So I'm going to go ahead and put all this back together, assemble it like the engine's going to run. Do not turn it over. We've got everything reassembled, torqued in place, gaskets, everything like this engine is going to run. There's no spark plug, there's nothing on the intake or the exhaust port. I'm going to turn the flywheel by hand in the direction of rotation very, very carefully, and when I start to feel resistance of the clay compressing, I will slow it down a little bit. Okay, those sounds are the tape over the ports moving. I go ahead and do the same exercise again. I feel less resistance because I'm no longer compressing the clay. Okay, and I'm going to bring it back to TDC. We're going to go ahead and remove everything back to how we started. We'll be able to look at the dots of clay. Okay, we've got a really good result here. We can see on the intake side it's compressed more than the exhaust side. Intake side here is going to be our limiting valve to piston clearance, not the exhaust side. Now, with these compressed pieces of clay, we can take a measurement device, a set of calipers, something, measure the thickness of these pieces of clay, and that'll tell us our clearance. Now, if your clearance is too tight, whereas the clay is smashed completely and the piston is hitting the valve, obviously that's bad. You can do several things. Change your cam timing, change your cam profile, or cut these reliefs in the piston more. And I recommend doing that at a machine shop, having a custom piston made, etc. That's all up to you. That's up to your entire engine package and what you're trying to achieve. I'm going to go ahead and pull out the calipers and we're going to take some measurements, see what we got here. .3 on the intake. 0.6 on the exhaust. Plenty of room. Super confident we can put this engine back together and run it safely up to target RPM and have no issues. If you over rev it and the spring in the valve can't keep up with the cam profile and you start to get separation, it's no longer following the profile, you can then have piston to valve contact. Obviously that's bad. There's many things that go into what the proper clearance is, but for this trail-oriented sportsman type engine, we'll call it, having that 1.3 on the intake, plenty of room for us. We're going to go ahead and take off this clay, which peels right up, put it all back together, and fire this thing up.